folks, welcome back to Jerome Bee Farm and Homestead. It's a really nice day here mid-January, so I thought I'd get out here by the beehives and do a couple things real quick. So we need to follow up on this hive number 1 and 5 nucleus combined. So my first video of the year, I took this hive number 1, which was right there, took the queen out because she was old, and combined it with that other nuke that's a little bit stronger. And hopefully that's going to make for a nice strong hive here in the spring that we can expand up and maybe get a little bit of honey production out of it, but probably not because it'll be like a first year hive. Another thing I've been doing is I got 50 pound bag of Bee Pro, and I mixed up some pollen patties, and I use Cayman Reynolds recipe. If you want to learn how to make these, go to Cayman Reynolds channel, and I used his old recipe, and he uses Ultra Bee, I use the Bee Pro. It's a little bit cheaper for a 50 pound bag, but it's like 40% protein and has all that other good stuff in it. So his old recipe uses sugar and water and a little bit of vegetable oil, and his new recipe uses Pro Sweet, and I don't have quick access to that, so I just went ahead with the other older recipe, and it turned out really good. You adjust the thickness by adding, more or less Bee Pro to get it to that nice doughy consistency, and it came out pretty good. So I made 2 double batches of that for his old recipe, and that made me about, I'd guess, 25-30 pounds of it. So a lot of it is the sugar. So we're also going to go check on the huge swarm over there, and because I put a couple of sugar bricks in addition to their big sugar feeder because it was emptying out pretty quick, and I'm going to throw a pollen patty on them. Going to throw a pollen patty, probably put it in the middle of this combine where the newspaper was, and cut it up a little bit, and or if there's room in the top I might put it up there. We'll just get into it and see what we find. So let's get going. Okay, here's what we've got. So hive number 1 is on the top and 5 is on the bottom. So 1 we moved over here and put on top because it didn't have as much activity as 5, and there were fewer foragers that might go out or get lost. But I did do it at the pretty much towards the end of the day. Sun was setting, so I don't think I lost many foraging bees. Now this hive, it's 48 degrees out and they're fairly active. It's cloudy, but I'm surprised how many bees are flying around right now. It's been fairly cold here in central Oklahoma the last week. So yeah, it's been fairly cold. We've had some freezing weather. It's been getting down into the 20s a few of the evenings at night. So I didn't have a newspaper. I used like a shop towel, one of those blue paper towel looking things. So it's probably cleaned all out in there, but that's what I want to get in there to check out. So I'm going to actually just break this open in the middle to start and clean that up, and that's probably where I'm going to put my pollen patty. Boy, this hive doesn't weigh anything hardly. There's not hardly any honey in it. Oh, well, I'm surprised to see that. So they haven't ate through that hardly at all. There are some open spaces at the front and the back, so they could come and go there on the front right there, but looks like they're going through that little space right there, but not a lot. There's a few really young larvae that have been dropped out that they pulled out of cells. So there's a few ants crawling around too. Well, I'm going to get this off of here and inspect down below and see what we find. Actually, I need to inspect the top because I think below is what's healthy, because that's what's coming and going out of here, out of the entrance. So I don't know, maybe all the bees left the top and went down to stay warm. Let's get in there and see what we find. So this is pretty interesting to find this in this condition. Every other time I've done a newspaper combine or a combine like this, they cleaned out the whole thing. This also looks a little moist. It may have wicked in moisture from the outside. So there is a hole right here, and they are coming and going through there. So hopefully they've combined, but they just haven't worked on this shop towel a lot. It's pretty soft. I'd think they would have ate right through it. Try not to drop all this trash in there. And then get these bees off. They don't want to let go. I'll just drop these down here for now and we'll get those later. So we got a pretty good cluster of bees right in here. I'm going to get that pollen patty and set right here. So I got half of it. I tore it in half because I don't want to block their communication through here with that thing. So we'll leave that right there. I'm going to set this back down, then we'll look in this top box and see what we find. I'm going to blow a little smoke in here just to keep the bees from flying, because it is kind of chilly out. So we've got water up here, but it's not in the hive. So yeah, see the water? Not sure how that got up there. Well, that isn't water. Yeah, it is. It's just soaked into the wood here, that's why it's dark, but it is wet. So they have gone through the sugar right there. And there's a few bees up in the top too, on the sugar. So, because it's cold, I'm going to go ahead and put part of that pollen, the other part of that pollen patty up here. Because it's cold, I'm not going to pull frames, I don't think. Okay, curiosity has the best of me. I'm going to pull one right in here and just take a quick look. Not going to stay in here long at all. That's an empty frame. So they're clustered pretty tight, so there is honey up here. I don't see our queen. So the original queen was in the bottom box. The queen in this top box is the one that we took out. And there's some capped brood right here. Just a little bit, which is what you would expect to see this time of year, just a little bit of capped brood. We'll go ahead and pull this one frame here and we'll get out. I wonder if I'd spot that queen just by chance. So I think the queen from the bottom had to have, or maybe have laid those eggs for that capped brood on that prior frame. And there's a little bit right there too. Not seeing that queen. So again, here's some capped brood right here. Right there. I think this was a honey frame here. Yeah, it's just a little bit of nectar in there. So they're not starving, but they don't have a real good cluster because it's this double vertical thing. And it don't look to me like they combine very well. There we go. We'll just put that up for another hive. Curious how that moisture got on that side. There's no moisture on the lid like it was made from condensation. It's kind of like it rained in there somehow, but I don't know how it did over this, through this cover. Okay, so this hive and that combined, they did combine is a little weird. They didn't eat all that paper towel up and have a bunch of openings in there. I don't know. That's nothing I've seen before. Usually they clear that out of there. So let's get over to the huge swarm and get the pollen patty on them, and then we'll be done. Okay, here's the huge swarm hive, number 27. And there's not any activity in the front of them. So they must still be in cluster. Okay, I should probably explain why when I talk about this hive, I say huge swarm, because there's a lot of new subscribers. So this is a swarm hive from 2019. I captured a swarm in a tree like right over there. And man, it was huge. It was like that big and that big around. And when I let the limb down, it was so heavy, it kind of jolted them just a little, but I had it pretty steady. A lot of bees fell off in the back of my truck, and actually hurt my shoulder trying to hold that thing like that. But anyway, it was so big, I put it in 2 deeps, and they also drew out, so there was like 4 drawn frames in these 2 deeps. They drew the rest of that out, and they did 2.5 supers of honey last year from this swarm, and it was just unbelievable. And they still have a big population, and that's their problem right now. But and not a lot of food stores, so that's kind of why we're concerned about it. So last time we were in here, they ate through their sugar, and there was a hole in the front here, and I added 2 sugar bricks to it. Sun's trying to come out. We might make 50 degrees today. And I'm smoking them, not to make them calm down or anything. I'm smoking them so they don't fly and waste energy coming out into this cooler air. So we're worried about these bees. Ooh, did you see that? I moved fast and they're like on me. This hive has always been fairly aggressive towards me. Finding the queen, boy, that was fun. The queen in here, I think she was a virgin queen, and I think the reason the swarm was so big is I think I had multiple hives have like cast swarms and all at the same time, and they all joined up because I got more than one queen out of here. I actually got a queen that they were balling and killing, and she was okay. I put her into another hive, and she's doing fine. So yeah, there's a lot of bees in here. I'll get the camera a little closer so you can see. Okay, so You can see there's a really good population in here, and last we had this open, this was solid all the way around here, so they've consumed all this around the edges now and are working their way back into it. So I'm just going to put these pollen patties right on top of here. So the queen in here, she's a little different variety, I believe, than what I have. Most of my queens are kind of a light tan colored, caramel colored, and they're easy to spot. This queen was really dark in coloration, and it took me a while to spot her. I'm gonna cut some little holes in here, help them get started. And another thing that's interesting, a neighbor of mine came over and was visiting with me, and he told me there's about a couple miles away, there's an apiary with about 40 hives in it. So maybe that queen is from that genetics of that other apiary. Oh, I got somebody trapped. I hear him complaining. Let me out. Okay, let's get this closed up. Yeah, so the fact I got another pretty good size apiary, about the size of mine, a little bigger. Well, that's in my face. That might also explain where that huge swarm came from, and the fact that the queen's darker. So maybe it came from over there and saw all these hives and landed over there. But anyway, this hive looks to be pretty good. Gave him some more nutrition, so that ought to help get him through the winter. It's mid-January, so we got a long ways to go. Man, that smoke is just going to follow me. But probably the next thing I'll do is I'll check my hives that I put feeders on, because those were the weaker hives, and probably give them a pollen patty as well, so they get a little extra boost of nutrition and not just carbohydrates, they get some protein as well. And I'm planning on selling some nucs this year, so I want my hives nice and strong and healthy and full of nutrition when before the flow gets here. So I'll be able to make plenty of splits and maybe start selling a few nucs. So that's the end of the video. If you would give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't, and we'll catch you on the next video. Y'all take care.